Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and here's a fun thing about today's episode. It's the first one that I've ever done with 4 total speakers. That means 3 total guests. This is something that my friends Alex Scott and Karen White at the Vicarious podcast, which is also on the Chernoff Music network of podcasts, are pros at, but I'm a newbie at it. And if you want to support these kind of endeavors and help me do more cool things that I've never done before, you can become a subscriber to Rhythm Changes, add your support behind this project, go to rhythmchanges.ca and subscribe now. Okay, well, here's one more thing that's cool about this guest is she, the leader of the trio who we're talking to, happens to have been the very first jazz musician I ever interviewed at Rhythm Changes back in 2020. I will link to that article in the description. It was a phone interview, not a podcast that I published in written form, but that's a cool trivia about this one. And here we go with 4 speakers. Let's get into it. Our 3 guests today are a trio. They are here in town playing at Frankie's and Tyrant. They are also recording their 3rd and 4th records from what I gathered before we turned on the mics. I'm very familiar with their first record, which is called Project Sock Retrieval, and the second record, which is called Ghost Stories. They are Jenny, Ben, and Kofi. They are the Friendship Trio. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, because there are 4 of us in this tiny little space, the first thing I have to do, and I'll start with Jenny, is we have to get everybody to introduce yourself so that people know whose voice is whose.
So I'm Jenny.
This is Jenny. This is Jenny.
This is Ben.
And this is Kofi.
Thank you. And we've got a piano trio. The first album, one of the special things about it is how early on it was that I spoke to you on the phone when you were walking around New York City to hear about it just after you made it. I didn't get the chance to hear you live at that time because it was in the thick of COVID. There was a lot going on. I just want to hear a little bit. I want to go back first before we talk about like some of the more recent stuff on this Vancouver trip. And I could hear a little bit from each of you. Just tell me about that time, the first album time, the Project Sock Retrieval time that I touched on when I talked to Jenny back in 2020. What can you tell me about that time?
Oh my goodness. Just 2020, that year was a lot, surprisingly. I was really not aware of what was going down in the world when we were recording the album, because we were recording it like this would have been early March, right? It was like March 3rd, March 4th. And then we came up here and then we played at Frankie's like March 8th or something. And things were still kind of like, there was a lot of tension building. People were buying up all the toilet paper. It felt like the start of a zombie apocalypse. Yeah. And the next thing you know, like hardly anyone came to our Frankie's gig. I was like, that's so strange. Like usually it's a packed house when I'm here. And the next thing you know, I'm back in New York. My Carnegie debut gets canceled.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was okay because that night I got to play at a pizza parlor with my best friend and her partner. And then I played like one more residency gig the following day. And I was on the bus on the way home. And I like read the notice that the mayor of New York City was shutting everything down. And just like there were months of isolation for me because I stayed in the city. I would like go on these, like I told you the last time you interviewed me, I'd go on these 2 to like 3 hour walks, sometimes 4, just in the empty city. I'd walk past the Central Park corpse tents because there was such a surplus of bodies in the hospitals. Sorry to get all macabre.
That's okay. We'll be bringing it up. It's a journey.
Yeah. And there were months of isolation. Then little by little, people kind of trickled back in the city. Kofi came in first and I spent some time with him. Then Ben came shortly. We finished up the mixes and then we released and did like all this live stream stuff to release that first album. It's kind of what happened.
Yeah. So you're saying that you were the first other member of the trio to meet Jenny? Is that what Jenny's saying?
Because I went back to Richmond. So the funny thing is, long story short, because I was with Ben. And we were in Seattle like right after we finished like Frankie's and all that, and that's when we got the announcement that they were about to shut everything down, or like stuff was kind of seeming that direction.
Yeah.
So instead of going back to New York, my mom was like, I'll just get you a ticket, come back to Richmond, and what I thought was going to be 2 to 3 weeks turned into 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought it was an extended spring break.
Yeah, because Ben's parents offered they were like, you could stay with us, if you wanted to for the 2, and I almost took them up on it, but I would have been out there at least for like half of that time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Although they were still in school, so
Yeah.
MSM kept postponing the return from their spring break. I was out of school by then, so I just wanted to get back and resume work. Yeah. Crazy.
So you all know each other from the Manhattan School of Music extended universe? Is that right? Or is there some other way that you kind of met there?
Actually, I met Kofi before, or we didn't actually meet, but Kofi knew of me before. He attended my senior recital at Berkeley in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
By pure coincidence. Have you had David Hodgson in here yet, saxophonist?
No.
Well, he was in the Berkeley 5-week programs. One of my friends from here, I was like, why don't you play on a song as a guest in my senior recital? Kofi came to watch because they were going to watch like Star Trek afterwards.
yeah, I think it was either that or like Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates or something, like whatever that movie was.
They were going to catch a movie
One of
after
those.
my recital. So Kofi and a bunch of the other 5-week friends that David made came and watched my recital, and I was actually his theory exam proctor at MSM. So it was my first year at MSM. I really needed a job. It was spring break, and I was just staying there at school. And I went to one of our program heads, and I was like, I really want a job. And he was like, it doesn't pay anything, or it pays very little, rather. It's minimum wage. And I was like, I don't care. Just give it to me. And so I was like trained to like grade and administer the theory test for the auditioning students. Anyways, like I was trained not to ever divulge any of the scores. So naturally,
you've divulged.
everyone knows
Yeah.
somehow. Everyone knows Kofi scored a 2 out of 29 on that test.
I did. I'm pretty dumb. At least
Oh,
when it
you're
comes to
not
these
dumb.
things.
No, wait, no. I guess I'm technically dumb going on this podcast and revealing to Chris Rosenberg that I tell everybody what you scored.
I'll call him tomorrow and I'll be like, yeah. Everybody knows.
And I met Kofi when we were in high school
Oh, nice.
at the Vale Jazz Workshop.
No, it was Newport.
Was Newport first?
That was first, yeah. Vale was
Oh.
second. Vale was in August. Newport was, I guess they were both in August.
So you had
but-
multiple workshops that you encountered each other at in
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, most of the people we ended up going to MSM with most of the people we went to that camp with either ended up at MSM or like Juilliard. So we were all pretty much like together almost. So
Yeah, it was a close community.
Yeah, small circle of like kind of the top high schoolers in the States. Kofi gets around, huh? You like met both of us before you even
yeah,
started.
different
that.
times. But you like 26. Well, I mean, I didn't meet, of course, but saw. Maybe I said like good job afterwards. I'm assuming that's probably something I would have done back then. But
I don't
2016 and then 2017, and then we're all together 2018. So
Yeah, one of the names that I remember from when we talked in 2020 was Buster Williams. Can you talk about the influence that he had on your band at the early days?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if there was so much of a musical influence. We just, when someone like Buster, you have access to him, you're just trying to like be in his presence as much as you can. Ben was the one who was officially studying with him. He kind of brought me into his lessons to play duo. And then we were like, well, why don't we bring in Kofi and just like make this trio? So we would play trio for Buster. He thought my tunes, like the early ones from Project Sock Retrieval. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah,
on
of
here?
course.
Oh, we played I Want My Fucking Socks Back for him. And he laughed himself to tears when he saw the chart.
yeah, good little Buster.
So I guess like I was really encouraged by Buster Williams.
Were you his student at some point? Is that the connection? Yeah, on bass.
Yeah. I was took private lessons with him for 2 years, and then I was in his ensemble at Manhattan School for 3 years. And Kofi and I were in that together.
Yeah, it was fun. Because I think it was during those lessons. I think we probably did it twice. I think maybe the second or third. Maybe we did it 3 times. The second or third one, he was like, "I want you guys to be in the combo." the next year, and I was like, are you shitting me?
Yeah.
Like only heard me like 2 or 3 times, but also coincidentally, when I started playing music back in 2000, or playing drums, I should say back in like 2009, Buster Williams Quartet came to Richmond like the next year. And I think that was probably the first band that I saw.
Which Richmond, Kofi?
Oh, sorry, Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
So on the other side of the continent. But yeah, no, I first heard that band, he had Cindy Blackman on drums. And I just remember like, I think and the one thing I noticed, I mean, concerts, they don't really do this now. But I remember the drummer would take one solo at the end of the night.
Like only one number out of the whole set.
Like it would probably be the last tune. And because he came to Richmond twice. He came like 2 years later and the same thing. Cindy Blackman just took like probably the craziest drum solos at that time. Well, I mean, to this day that I've probably ever heard. And it was at least like 5-6 minutes of just drums. I'm just like, 10, like, I don't even know what the paradiddle is yet. And I'm just like, just watching it like, what the fuck, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They didn't play the whole set, right, until the very end.
What do you mean they didn't play they didn't play any solos until the very end. From what I remember, no solo.
Yeah, then the 5-6 minutes is fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was crazy. So I mentioned that to Buster like several times. Like, he remembered the gigs and everything. So, because I studied with him too. I did private lessons my last year at MSM. I split with him and Kendrick Scott. And I just would ask Buster, there was a week when he subbed for Ron Carter, I think at was it the Black Hawk? Not Black Hawk. What's that record that?
Oh,
he wasn't.
I know he
on the
played.
record,
He said like it was in San Francisco with Miles.
Yeah.
And he got asked to be in the band with Miles.
Ah.
But then turned it down because I think he had a really good deal going with, I think it was Nancy Wilson at the time.
Okay.
And
yeah, that sounds familiar.
And she paid them well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the vocalists back then had their musicians on retainers and stuff like that. But it would have been interesting to hear where that band would have gone with Buster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, Buster has a documentary out. Did you know that?
No.
Like we were at the like premiere, or like, was it the premiere of it?
No, I think it was just a showing of it.
Oh, a showing of it. Okay. Where was the showing? Was it at the New School, New York City?
Yeah.
Summer of 2022? I think that's when it was.
I don't know the timing. But
yeah, I think it was summer of 2022, like late summer. We were at the New School and we watched his documentary, and it was so well made. Some Bass to Infinity? Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bass to
I'll
Infinity.
look it up. Yeah. Huh.
He's a beautiful human being, and
yeah,
incredible musician, obviously.
They're great stories, hilarious stories in the documentary, and they're animated by very talented cartoonists. So it just really brings it to life. It's such a nice touch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, Buster's great. So
yeah. Any other, before I go on, I want to zoom through the discography a little bit. I want to hear about ghost stories, but are there any other kind of teachers or educational, and Jenny, you could talk about here too, or in the States or anywhere really. Like, are there any other kind of educational influences that you want to shout out at this time before we move forward in the timeline? What do you think?
Yeah, you said Jenny, so go ahead. Definitely, like, especially just even because we recorded the past couple of days. I was talking to Ben about this. I'm like, every single note and passage I play, every section of my tune, transition, chord progression, I'm always asking myself, how would this sound to Phil Markowitz? Like all of it, I'm like, how would this sound to Phil? And it really, I think it makes me really hold myself to a higher standard because he's such a detailed person. And in terms of recent educators and influences, like, I stopped lessons obviously since finishing grad school, but recently took one lesson with Fred Hirsch.
Oh, wow.
Last year. He knows I need to book my second. I'm just procrastinating because I'm scared. And I also took a lesson with Aaron Goldberg, and they were both so instructive in very different ways. I think it really changed my playing drastically over the past year to have worked with those two. So definitely, but Phil is like the the big one. He kind of really left this indelible mark on me to like always just take things to the next level, never settle for like good enough or, good-ish, I would say.
Yeah. So I would say one of mine, my teacher at the time, Kendrick Scott, at school, one of the many things that we worked on was like orchestration. Like if like in the music there's like maybe 1/8 note hit, why would I hit the cymbal right there, and let it ring when it's supposed to be short? So I maybe should hit a drum, just different ways to play the music, because like we're drums, so we're not necessarily trained to think kind of like a horn player or like a pianist would. But we really, most of our exercises too, we would like work on that. Because one thing I noticed too, one of the tests that we had at MSM was getting in was sight reading, right? And I had 3 different people score me on that. I had Stefan Harris, Kendrick Scott, and John Riley. And wow. I remember Stefan actually gave me 100 because technically I played everything correctly. But with John, and I think who gave me the lower score out of the two? I think Kendrick gave me like a modest score, but John gave me like, I forget what it was. But it's just because I didn't like orchestrate. I pretty much just played everything on the snare. I just kind of, like read it like, but they were expecting kind of more using different cymbals or different drums to that effect. So like most of those 2 years I worked with Kendrick, that was a lot of what we did. And it kind of like listening back to the first 2 albums, like I realized, it kind of does come out, a little bit. So yeah,
what a row of 3 people there.
No, literally, like I remember walking, cause they sat me at the drums, for whoever walked me in. And then first Stefan walks in, Stefan, not all super nice. So I was like, okay, fine. I wasn't that nervous. But then I think Kendrick walked in. And I've been listening to Kendrick Scott. My older brother, he's a pianist. He did Berklee's 5-week program from 2012 to 2014. I think 2012 is when Kendrick's Conviction album came out. So I remember seeing like he had like a newsletter from there. I remember reading. I was like, Conviction. I saw like he has the sticks crossed. I'm like, this looks like a dope album. Like all of freshman year, that was high school. That was probably what I listened to like the most. So seeing him walk in, I was just like, shit. And then John Riley walked in. I knew, of course, I had this book, The Art of Bop Drumming. That's like high school. That's what I was working out of. So it was just like, wow. Like, Stefan Harris, too. Like, I listened to a lot of his music, too. There was plenty of YouTube videos. So it was just like all 3 of them. It's terrifying, So.
Can we also talk about Kendrick's shoes, please?
Kendrick, just the way I still remember to this. I had a gig in Brooklyn and I was heading down there. And this is complete coincidence. I forget what subway stop. I guess I'm probably taking the 2, so I'm maybe at like 96th Street or whatever. And I put my snare drum down and my cymbals. And I see this dude walking up with red shoes, kind of like in my peripheral vision. And he picks up my snare drum, and I'm about to fight him. It's Kendrick Scott. It's literally Kendrick just messing with me. I'm just like, bro. But yeah, he was wearing some red shoes. Like, I forget what they were.
Were they off-white?
They probably were off-white.
I have a story, and you're in it. You're partially in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but you had me on a lesson with Kendrick and
with
Matthias.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Kendrick had the off-white sneakers with the tag on it, but the tag is a part of the shoe. Like, and Matthias was like, "Oh, you forgot to take your tag off." He's like, our buddy. He's from Denmark. He doesn't know that like kind of material shit like we do.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh God, like you're embarrassing me so much."
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like if I tried to like say something about like the stickers on the front of a hat or something, which I could very easily do. So I acknowledge it. But yeah, that's funny. Well, I know we talked about Buster a little bit, but Ben, do you want to jump in on the teacher train here at all?
Yeah, my first like really important jazz teacher was Chuck Deerdorf, a great Seattle bassist who passed away a couple years ago now. But he just kind of, he made an indelible mark on my playing and just on the Seattle jazz scene as a whole. And then I hear like some of his other students who are younger than me, and they I can just hear kind of like hear his influence so well in all of us. And so yeah. And then Sam and I, another great teacher I've had, he played bass with Tigran Amassian on like Mock Root, among other records. And
You just need a list mock route.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So he's like, I just had a lesson with him recently and he kicked my ass on my technique. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah. He's like, and also just always holding me accountable to like playing musically. And Buster was just storytelling, sensuality, and like just love in the music. It was very, I don't know, if you played music and for him and it didn't have those things, then he'd be like, his head would be in his hands and he'd be shaking his head.
I mean, there was one time it was one of the best things at school was our junior year. We had him for a trio combo, so it was just piano trio. And I remember like the first 2 weeks, like we brought in tunes, like it was chill, it was fine. Then he asked for a drum feature, and my dumb ass said, "Oh, let's play 2 bass hit." And I mean, not like really knowing like the arrangement, but like I kind of knew like the beginning part. I didn't know anything after the solo section. I don't think any of us did, or we just did play. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I just know for myself, I did not know.
Oh, I was folding on that too.
Yeah, and like it's not like we like. I mean, if we played at the gig, it probably would have been fine. Like it was cool, but Buster expected more from us, and we did not deliver. And when I tell you that was the first time I ever saw him get mad, I generally like don't care about what people think, but that time I actually felt like pretty bad.
Oh, he was mad, and then he was mad the next week too, and maybe the week after. It took us a few weeks to get it together where he was like actually happy.
Yeah, I don't think it was 2 bass hit that even made him happy. It was what was the arrangement? Gone. I think that like
Gil
really
Evans.
we redeemed ourselves.
Yeah. And then Ron Carter, I stayed with him after Buster while I was still in Buster's ensemble, and he's in, I mean, I don't even, everybody knows him, but he's one of the great bass educators, in addition to being like obviously one of the greatest jazz bassists of all time.
The most recorded.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every jazz bass player, probably in New York at least, has probably had a lesson or 2 with him.
Yeah, I mean they should.
So,
otherwise you're missing out on like master of bass pedagogy, and then and recently I've been studying with Ben Wolf, who's also been amazing, and just really getting into playing 2-feel and playing a lot of Bach, and just really digging into like little details of great jazz records.
I can't just let it go. I have to ask if you have any Ron Carter moment or story to share, just because I could have opened the show with you having studied with Ron Carter. That's a big deal. I'm just wondering if anybody wanted to share anything about him.
I have a couple, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Because Ron started at MSM right before my second year. So he came in and he was like a part of the juries. So I remember walking into my piano jury, and my private instructor at the time was Jeremy Manacia, like very, very sweet, awesome dude, Zen Buddhist, amazing human. He was like, just for the juries, because I asked him what to wear, he was like, just come as you are, be comfortable. So I show up to the juries. I like rolled up out of bed in a dorm room that wasn't mine. Throw on some clothes, get down there, and like it's just all guys and me, and they're all in suits, and I'm like in jeans and a shirt and like my Vans, and I'm like, and like it's my time to go in. I see Chris Rosenberg. He's all like, "Hey, Jenny," like Phil Markowitz, Jeremy Manasseh are there. They were all my teachers by then, so they were all very amicable. And I just see this very slender, tall gentleman at the end of the row of tables, just kind of slouching in his chair with his long legs extended forward. He had his arms crossed, and he wouldn't even lift his head towards me when I walked in, and it was Ron Carter. And I think I got a solid jury score. I got an A, but we have this mutual friend of ours, Bijan. He had his jury the same day. You're gonna like this story. This is the good part. So
I could tell.
Bijan is like a junior at MSM. We all have different repertoire lists. So I had a different list than him. But he had both Dolphin Dance and One Finger Snap on his list of 30 tunes. We all picked 10 of the 30 on our list. So he is up there for his jury, same panel that I have, and they call One Finger Snap on him. And so Bijan, being Bijan, he stands up and he goes, well, it's always been a dream of mine to have the master, Mr. Ron Carter play on One Finger Snap with me. And Ron Carter goes, keep dreaming.
I just don't know what he thought was going to happen.
What did he think? Yeah, exactly.
He folded on that tune apparently, but he played better on the next one. It's a shame because Bijan can really play. He had to just do that to himself up front. And
I was fooled too. I was fooled just having Ron, because I remember there was Buster was on my jury. And I already knew Buster at the time, so we were cool. But I was just praying. I was like, please have Ron not be there. I don't think I would have been able to handle it.
He was at the live bass auditions too. Buster wasn't there at the time, but I remember the first person who came out and told us Ron Carter's on the panel, and then we were just freaking out.
Do you need Buster there? That's already terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, both of them were on the panel. I just would have fainted. But
I would have liked the jury but like I said, me and Buster were already kind of cool at the time. But I think if both of them were there, I probably would have just not played.
I had them as my panel on the last jury, but that was just virtual. But Ron wrote, "Excellent student. I will miss him very much."
I played on that one, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
That was a jury I played on. I mean, speaking of panels, though, Buster and Ron on a panel. If you want to talk about panels, the one I played in front of in October.
True.
We're gonna talk panels.
Okay.
Are you ready for name drop central?
I mean, sure.
Bill Charlap, Hiromi Uehara, Danilo Perez, Herbie Hancock, obviously, and who was the fifth? Orrin Evans. Yeah.
This is a Hancock competition.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Wow. Yeah, that must be crazy.
Yeah, and I didn't pass out at all.
Yeah.
No fainting.
Can you tell me more about your experience doing that? I haven't gotten the chance to hear about that from you, really.
Oh, it was such a blur. I mean, it was so crazy getting in. I found out I got a call from Washington, D.C. while I was in the gym, and it just felt like it meant yes, just seeing the call. I've done enough of these things where I'm like, like a call from Washington. I knew that it was kind of based there. And so I pick up and, it's Leonard Brown, the competition organizer, and he's like, hey, Jenny, is now a good time? And I think I don't even let him finish his sentence. I'm like, no way. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, no. And he's like, yes, no. And I'm like, just in this, I'm in the free weights part of the gym. There's all these just very beefy Planet Fitness goers, just everyone put down their weights and was just looking at me, just screaming into my phone, like, no way. Can I tell my mom?
Did you tell everyone at the gym? Did you reassure everyone?
No, I called my mom right away, though. I called Ben, but he was in a lesson with Ben Wolf, and I was like, this is an emergency.
Did you pick up?
Yes, I did. Yeah, Jenny told me it was an emergency, and then she screamed. Then she got into the competition. And
did Ben Wolf hear? What did Ben Wolf say?
I told him, and he
wasn't impressed.
He's like, I could have gotten in that.
Oh, man.
Yeah. What year was this? How long ago was this? Very recent?
This October 2023.
2023. So yeah, not even 1 year ago.
No.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. There's so much more we could talk about there. I wanna go back to the band a little bit. I want to get to the Ghost Stories time. Maybe this is the right timing, maybe it's not. But when was the first time that the three of you traveled to different places and played in different cities together?
I guess it was COVID. That was the first time.
Right before.
Well, right before.
Also, even before the first record, you were already doing a little bit of that.
Yeah, because we record. So, I mean, the reason why we came out here the first time was to record all that music, and we did a bunch of gigs in Seattle, and that was when we did the first Frankie's gig or whatever. Yeah. So, I guess that was the first time.
It was late February into early March of 2020. It was to record albums 1 and 2.
Yeah, so those were recorded in the same session.
Yeah, and so it wasn't even just coming to Vancouver and going to you have the connect. You're from Seattle, right? So you also did some stuff in Seattle, and you also came up here all the way back then.
Yeah. And one of the Seattle gigs that I was used to selling out had 3 people in the audience. My parents and a great pianist, Marina Albero. Shout out! Thank you for coming out.
Yeah. What's the other place?
Egan's.
Egan's, yeah.
Egan's, yeah.
Yeah. But even, I mean, I feel like last time we played there, it wasn't like that many people either.
That
Like
was the only time we played there.
No, we played there the second time.
We played there a second time, and it was also just like your parents and some friends.
Oh,
and,
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, hey, we all have those gigs,
Oh,
it happens,
Yeah, it was a very perplexing tour. I was like, I can't believe it's so poorly attended. I mean, our Pat's gig was still packed, though.
That was
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Pat's and Silk Purse. Silk Purse was quite well attended because they had their clientele. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened to them. Did they close operations? Or
Silk Purse still presenting shows this week. Right now, they have their series. Pat's closed in some year during the Rhythm Changes time. I think it was 2022, and then the basically was replaced by the place called La Fabrique Saint George because that's where Sharon Minamoto books music now. So that's kind of this, even though it's a completely different vibe and place. That's kind of like the equivalent to Pat's, but there isn't really a place that has that particular kind of feel to it anymore.
Yeah, I
in
miss
town,
that
that's for
place.
sure.
Like, bikers there, just pull up and kind of, especially the second time, because I remember we came like right across the border and we were kind of late, and I remember like we just like just put our stuff on stage and just started playing, and it was like actually like pretty fire.
Oh, the stress that day, the stress.
Yeah, just going
Oh,
across
and
the border.
Sharon was so great about it. She's like, Jenny, you want to eat? I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm late. Just let me play, Sharon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's zoom very far forward to this week. So Monarch Studios, as of when we're recording this, were you in there for 2 days in total, or how much time were you in there?
2 days.
Yeah.
And, the albums aren't complete. There's still like a big batch of songs we were hoping to feature some
Okay.
artists on that we're going to finish recording in New York City, hopefully in the fall.
Yeah. So Monarch Studios, and now I can throw it way back in. If I'm not mistaken, you were basically the first person ever to record jazz at Monarch Studios. And I don't think a lot of people who listen to this show know this because Monarch Studios was founded in 2013. And I'm pretty sure you were, if not you were one of the first ever people to walk in there and play jazz ever.
I think I was the first. Yeah.
I think you were too because I was there.
Yeah, I mean, right? You were you remember Tom saying that because you played on that audition, Will. Wow. Yeah. Was it you and Nick Babé?
Probably, yeah, because you were playing with us at that time, piano trio. And I remember that in a lot of ways, it was like one of the first times because not only did the studio founder, Tom Dobrzhansky, make that remark of like, oh, I haven't really had jazz people come in here for anything. And like you said, you weren't making an album. You were making like an audition recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure Dave Sekula also walked into the studio one of those days to see it for the first time. Like he had never been to this place called Monarch Studios. And now he is like the jazz staff engineer there who everybody wants to record with. And I think he came in there for the very first time to check it out during that time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a while ago, so I don't really remember. But I think I remember something special about that time.
I am a pioneer. Yes.
Yeah.
And just before we recorded, Jody Prosnick was in the studio the day before. So,
Yeah.
he started a...
Yeah, I
Trend.
mean, I don't know if you were aware of this, Will, but we actually were booked somewhere else that double booked us. I think Greenhouse Studios.
Oh, like way back then?
Yeah, I'm going to
yeah.
throw them right under the bus. It's been a decade, but I will always remember they double booked us. And I was like, are you shitting me? Because it's mid-November. My college apps are due December 1st. Like, how could you? We were freaking out. I like called up Monarch just as a last resort, thinking there's no way there's availability. Tom responded immediately, was like, here, we'll get you sorted. Like, I'm going to try to find a way for you to do this. This sounds important. He took care of me. This time around for our tour, we were expecting to record someplace called Sophia Hat Studios. We like planned the Seattle leg of our tour around it, only to find out, Ben and I found out from Chris Spencer, our contact there, that he had actually closed his operations because he was moving. And so we were like, oh, shit. In the lurch again, I reached out to Tom last minute because we were like, we'll have some time. And yet again, Tom like moved stuff around Canada Day and July 2nd, and then took us in again. So I was like, it's been 10 years and he's still saving my ass.
Wow.
Shout out to Tom.
He seems like a good guy.
Yeah, he's
So-
the best.
I'll chip in mine too. I have a story where he helped me out too, and this is a fine time for me to chip it in. My first album was recorded in 2015. I didn't end up releasing it until 2020. I went back to him in 2020. I never even saved the original session files on a hard drive, and I was going to
Okay.
get somebody else to mix them, and he had them. So I was able to come to his studio 4.5 years later and get my session files and give them to my friend to mix them.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Still have them 4 years, 4.5
And I
years.
didn't even.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did. Yeah.
Wow. Tom's the GOAT.
Yeah, so much love. Obviously, it's a much loved place for jazz now. Yeah, Jody was in there with Scott Hamilton and Triology recording an album for Cellar
nice.
just before you were. I heard them play at Frankie's actually on the last weekend of the Jazz Fest. So no, that's what they were doing.
Nice.
Looking forward to hearing that. So what do you want to share, if anything, about like the music that you just recorded over these last 2 days?
It's hard as shit. No, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no, that's completely true. Kofi isn't lying one bit.
I believe it.
I mean, what I told my mom last night was like just I'm so thrilled and proud. I know we haven't even finished all the tunes yet. We haven't gotten our guest featured tunes recorded yet, but just what we have so far, we did all of our trio stuff. So everything that's just, me, Ben, and Kofi has been put down, and we're thrilled with every single final take that we're using. I don't think that's ever happened to me in a session where I'm just like every song we recorded once we got that final in is just like, wow. I don't know, chills, because it all starts off as like sketches in my iPhone voice memos app, and then to suddenly hear it like all fleshed out. This is really like our playing and my music taken to the next level. Like when we first recorded, it was in 2019 and 2020, actually. Some tracks were laid out. Brooklyn, November 2019. Some were Seattle, like March 2020. We were all very young. I think Ben was 20 years old. Kofi was 19.
Yeah.
And I was 24, like fresh out of grad school. And it's been 4 years. We're all like very different players, very, very different. And I think the writing has matured, even though I still love my old albums and my old stuff. And we added a lot of extra stuff in these next recordings. I don't know if I want to spoil anything, but there's some fun overdubs that I do. And there's one song where like you'll hear it and it'll sound like you jumped to a different album. Like it doesn't even sound like our stuff, but in the best way possible. I'm so proud and excited for albums 3 and 4.
Yeah, and I will say like one thing that people generally don't talk about, and you can tell in people's music what they're missing, is just life. There's been a lot in all of our lives that has happened since 2020, so it's just like putting that into the music. And that's kind of what they don't teach you in music school in a way. That's kind of something you have to figure out on your own, just putting your life experiences and all that. And some teachers, like Buster, kind of helped you with that and all that, but like not a lot of people have that. So, it just sounds like life, if that makes sense.
What I love about the albums is it's our playing taken to the next level. We've aged and matured 4 years. But it's still like the heart of the albums is still very much like albums 1 and 2. Just a lot of stories, a lot of statements towards people. And actually, like overall, I would say album 3 and album 4, it's like, again, kind of like album 1, really fueled by some negative emotions and experiences. Album 1 was the big heartbreak album. It's so funny to think about.
You can tell right from the titles.
Yeah,
of course.
And,
even though you can't necessarily tell what exactly they're about, the general spirit very, very much comes across. Right?
Exactly. Album 2 was, conceived of when I was ghosted by somebody I was very interested in.
Hence the title.
Yeah, Ghost Stories. Exactly. And album 3 is, I'm going to just drop the title. It's going to be called Reasons Why You Won't Find Friendship on Dating Apps.
That's the full title?
That's
a long title. I love long titles.
It's going to really cover the album cover, but it's kind of just dating app themed, and the music is just stories about the mishaps and the different types of characters and people I encountered just being, in my early 20s, just young and exploring dating apps and dating in New York City. So just really fun, like that whole album. And album 4 is going to be Friendship Forever, because it's our 4th album. And just, again, more stories. We had this incident where a New York City singer, I call him that, and we all kind of consider him a guest in the scene. He was very rude to Kofi. He talked smack about Kofi. Of all people, with Ben, Ben approached him after one of his gigs, a singer, and just said, oh, you sounded great, man. I loved your set. And because Ben and Kofi had previously accompanied the same singer on a gig earlier in 2023 in the spring. So this was fall of 2023. So in the spring, Ben and Kofi played a gig with him. I was actually in the audience. I came out to support, and I thought, they sounded great. Apparently, the singer had a bad attitude afterwards. I can kind of tell just like being, in the club. And so it's the fall. Ben is at the same club. He played an earlier set, complimented the singer. The singer immediately proceeds to berate Kofi and was like, "See, look at what I can accomplish when I'm not playing with Kofi," which is like, why is that necessary? You can just like simply not call him again.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to talk smack about someone's playing. Like, I just won't call them. You won't hear from me. You won't hear anything from me. So I kind of just stood up and just like went to town on social media. I made a very, I thought it was a funny post. It got a lot of reactions, like Benny Benack, Russell Hall, like those people were like, just laughing their butts off at it. Like, just like, I guess this Pokemon, and then I proceeded to list these very toxic traits about the singer. Everyone knew who I was talking about because he had quite a reputation for being abusive to the musicians he hires. And the singer decided to take my post and then try to like, I don't know, make something out of it, like I'm being homophobic or something. And I was that's so funny, and I just proceeded to just like rip him a new one on social media. Like it's still a highlight on my Instagram. But long story short, this is now a tune, and it's going to be on our 4th album. It's called Lil Dicky. That's the name of the tune.
Right, I saw that in your stories like yesterday or today, like from the studios. You made a little remark about that.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Gotcha.
That's the one.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he chose to tell me, of all people, that about Kofi, I was just stunned. Wow. And then he just like walked away immediately, just fled.
Like Ben didn't even get to like process the information, and he just like hightailed it. And I, for one, I'm like, you're a singer. Like, you should be a capable entertainer, yet like read the room, dude. Like, Kofi was the ring bearer at her wedding. You're going to say this to the groom.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of just clueless. Well, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I just lost a lot of sleep over this. I'm not going to lie. It's just, no, I'm sure.
I mean, he
blocked both of us.
Well, today I found out he unblocked me. I was like seeing posts he was like tagged in on. I was like, why?
But the funny thing is he never blocked me.
So weird.
It was just like, it was just like, and he like after that like felt the need, like probably like has commented on like 90% of the things I posted on like Facebook. I was like, bro, I know what you said, right?
Speaking, I don't know.
It's like, it's not like I'm like mad or like, blah, 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 but it's just like, it's hilarious. Like,
Kofi never commented on any of that once. It was just me going to town on this person. I'm like, you don't come for Kofi. Kofi is family. My mom likes Kofi more than me,
I wouldn't say that. But maybe it's because I eat all her food.
I eat all her food too.
True.
But it's funny. He blocked Ben simply for telling me. Like, he must have pieced together how that information was relayed to me, and so Ben found himself blocked too. We were quite proud of this, actually. Felt like Chrissy Teigen when Donald Trump finally blocked her. It was I'm quite proud of myself, and that was just again stripped away from me today.
You just have to. Well, I guess you can't block him because. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you could block him.
I mean, you could block him, but I feel like that would be I feel like that would be too obvious.
No, that would be just Uno reverse. Oh, which brings me to another story I have about Ron Carter. If you guys want to hear it. I once spent like an entire afternoon after finals and juries week, like one of the last days of MSM, playing Uno in the cafeteria with some second-year masters. I was in my first year, and like it was like Ryan Sands and Bessie Tafese. I do not know how to pronounce his last name for sure, but it's like Remy Ashley was there too. It was like us, our whole squad. We were so into Uno that week. I think it was like Ryan Sands who got us all into it. And just happens. And partway through, like 30 minutes into our game, Ron Carter strolls into the caf, gets himself a salad and like a Tropicana orange juice. I still remember what he had with him. Like sat down at a table facing ours and just watched us play for like the next like hour and 40 minutes.
Should have invited him to play.
It was that long. I know. And at one point I was like, hey, do you want to ask him to play? And everyone was just kind of like, I don't know. Do you want to ask him? I don't know. Should we ask him? And I was like, but what if you're playing Ron Carter and he's the turn after yours and your last card is a draw 4?
Just about to say, what if you're the one to give Ron Carter the draw 4?
Do you draw for Ron Carter, the greatest living bassist?
You make him draw 4. You have to play the rules like everyone else. And you have to win. So you would do it to you?
Oh, true.
No doubt.
Yeah.
4, 1 for every one of the strings he plays. Does that mean he can make me draw 88?
Oh my God.
I thought there was going to be something like walking bass quarter note 4/4 thing in there.
Ah.
There's all kinds of layers
Oh, yeah.
to this.
Oh, I love that. Love it.
Does it feel like, I mean, being a band, a unit, a trio, being so connected for 4 or 5 years, does it feel like a long time? Does it feel like a short time? How does that feel to you guys?
It's been 6 years.
Okay, so how does that feel?
Yes and no. I don't know. Like, I mean, just being an adult, we all know time goes by so fucking fast. So it kind of doesn't feel like a long time, but in the sense, like, when you actually like sit down and think about it, you're like, oh, it's actually been like, I mean, I can't think of a band I've been a part of this long, you know, like I'm in a couple of bands now, but like, you know, past like year or two, but like this is like, oh, looking back, like longest group of people, especially exclusive, because, you know, generally you have subs sometimes in the band or whatever, you know, not everyone can make it, but every gig we've done as a group, it's been all 3 of us, you know. So.
You can't sub out anyone in friendship.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Ben and I have talked about that a lot, just about how like the group will die the minute just one of us dies. Sound of the group is very contingent on each of our very unique individual sounds. That's what carries the music. I mean, there was one time where like Kofi and I were like mad at each other. I like tried out some other drummers on the same music. That was very early on in friendship, and it just never was the same. And I played with some like drummers I love too, but they just never played the music quite right.
Because they ain't me.
Yeah. Correct.
But yeah, no, it's nice, like thinking like, oh crap, you've actually being in the bands, not just a one-off. Because we've all had those, you know, 1 or 2. We've all had those times. Oh, great gig with another band. Oh, we'll call you again. Just never get the call, or it's maybe like a year or 2 later. You know, blah 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 blah. But it's nice to be like, oh
yeah,
you're in the band.
Yeah, I'm a photographer, and I have shot many photo shoots for bands.
Burgeoning
collectives that have not stood the test of time, or even like a few months, I think. So, but yeah, good money.
I mean, Ben and I have talked about this a lot, again, because he was like the guy that, you know, you would get budget photos and videos done with while he was at MSM. He would like provide the service to students. And, you know, there were constantly collectives forming with like this group of students and this clique of students and this clique of students. Friendship is the only one that made it out of there like intact, going 6 years strong, onto album 4, 3rd tour, all of that.
Have you thought about the fact that let's say when, you know, at year 10 or like if you double the length of time, like if you get to year 12, like you get pretty quickly, not long after where you are now, where you get to the point where like it's rare that any jazz ensembles in the history of the music have like lasted that long.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot. There are some. There's Keith's trio, and we want to be like that someday, you know.
I mean, it's so great that we're 3 people. It's so easy to manage.
True,
I compare us to Destiny's Child when they got rid of those 2 ladies whose names I can't remember, but it was like you know, Beyonce, Kelly, and Michelle, like just the very marketable 3. I think just growing up a kid and watching documentaries of Destiny's Child, and that magical number of 3 must have stuck around, lingered on in my head, because we played a house concert recently in Olympia where, it was very intimate. It was just all these people on couches and chairs and makeshift seating piled into a living room with us. And, we got to like just kind of have a conversation with them as well as play songs. That was like maybe the best gig I've ever played, and it was with these two. And, that was the first gig we played after not having played it for over a year, because the last time we played before this tour was 2023 in May at the AAPI Jazz Festival in New Jersey. And we were like remarking that it's about to be 6 years for us this fall. And just the fact that we had no rehearsal, we just came in and just played this house concert, and it was just transcendental music. I'm like, the 6 years, I really feel it. Like you feel it and you hear it. It's so easy to play with these guys. Like we have each other just, I don't think we're fully figured out in terms of we have each other completely figured out, but in terms of like other musicians our age and this generation, like the connection we have and how much we know each other's playing and how we just know how to make music work with each other is pretty special, I would say.
Yeah. And I think, I said this at the house concert because I think we got asked a similar question, but the thing of our age or just our generation is we want everything to be perfect because we kind of, I feel like it's, I wouldn't say it's, not everyone, like I feel like we're the exception, but like, we stuck around until like we figured things out. Generally it's like, oh, if it's not tipping, but if it's not 100, like from the first time, people kind of just quit and like start, I'll get like another drummer, or this guy was good, but let's go. And then just keep kind of rotating. No, we stuck with each other and...
Oh, yeah. You mean like people want it to be perfect right away?
Oh, yeah. Just like, just they don't want to take like any time to actually work stuff out and work with things. Oh, this guy was cool. Maybe did this, maybe play a little bit too loud. Let's go with this next guy, instead of actually also just giving feedback too, So it's just.
I feel like that's a theme that might come up on an album about dating apps.
Yeah. Well, no. True.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a great connection.
Yeah.
Paradox of choice.
We're very spoiled by choice in New York City, but yeah, the same thing, Kofi addressed about the house concert. Like we haven't always had the same ease playing with each other. I think 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was always chemistry from the jump. And I think just, it was just pure happenstance that I got these two to play that music that I was writing at that time, Project Stock Retrieval, when it was conceived of and born. I think the music kind of was always what made me want to keep playing with these two, is like they are the sound of the originals that I'm writing. It's not just music for me, or it's not just music in a vacuum. It's like music for the three of us specific people, Ben, Jenny, Kofi. And yeah, I think that's why even when we had moments where it's like we still had a lot to work out, like for me, it's the challenge has always been playing good time. And like, that's been something that I'm always, working on improving. But I think that's what helped us stick together and just really, keep close knit throughout the years as we also just improved as individuals.
I want to hear a little bit, it could be together and separately, just about whatever you might be doing. Like you're here now, you're going to be in Vancouver for a little bit more. You're kind of in the middle of a trip, but just like what else you might each be up to like for the rest of the summer, because the musicians always have interesting there's so many different things that you could fill your summer with. So I would just love to go around and hear a little bit about anything that you have coming up over the let's say the next couple months, or let's say until like the academic year kind of starts again or whatever.
Well, after this tour, Jenny and I are going to the Stanford Jazz Workshop, and she's going to be teaching there. I'm going to be a camp counselor.
Nice.
And then right after that, I'm going on another West Coast tour from Bellingham, Washington, down to San Francisco with Seattle, New York-based band I'm part of called Meridian Odyssey. And I think then I have to start school again. No.
Yeah. Well, I've been playing with this rock. I don't even know how to describe the music. Kind of definitely more poppy, kind of rockish band. Well, I guess this is the singer's name, but we go by Doe Eyes. Like we just opened up. There's this big concert in Richmond, Virginia, Friday Cheers. It's like every Friday from like June, and Browns Island's big. Like I mean, I've heard Trombone Shorty there. I heard Snarky Puppy there for the first time. So we opened up for actually a Seattle-based band. I forget the name. A couple of weeks ago, but we are headlining some more dates. I'm trying to like. I don't really have that much written music, but like I'm trying to lead my own bands because there's like specific stuff that I want to play, but like I'm not going to generally be able to play it unless I book the band. So I have this great saxophone player, Tim Green, coming down from Baltimore. And he's played with like Christian McBride, Israel and the New Breed, Mary J. Blige. I mean, he's played for like everybody.
Oh, Mary J. Blige.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's played for a lot of people. I think probably like Kirk Franklin, maybe. You know, he's played for a lot of people, but we're actually think we're headed home next week. So the week after that, July 19th, I'm leading that band. Just playing like, I mean, Tim, he hired me for a bunch of gigs last year. Like I remember doing something, what was it? We did something in DC with this bass player, Steve Kirby, who was one of Elvin Jones's last bass players before he passed. And I remember like he mentioned like, oh yeah, I got Tim playing blah, blah, blah. I was like, I wonder if he means Tim Green. I've been listening to Tim Green since high school, and sure enough, Tim Green walked in, played that gig. A couple months later, I just get a random text, hey, you want to play blah, blah, blah? I'm like, who is this? Oh, it's Tim Green. I'm like, oh, okay. So we did like 3 or 4 gigs, and I was supposed to get him out for a gig last year, but me being me, I totally gave him the wrong date. The gig was September 3rd, and I think I said August 3rd. And he called me August 3rd, which was like a Tuesday, and the gig was supposed to be a Sunday. And he was just like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it today. I'm literally like headed to the gym. I'm at the gym. And I'm like, what's he talking about? like, I literally not look. I was like, oh, like, so this time, I quadruple checked the date of the gig. And I was like, okay, look, can you come through? And we managed to make it happen. So, you know. Definitely trying to do a lot more band leading this year, but
Wow, gosh. Well, after we leave Vancouver, we're gonna pop down to the Metau for that leg of our tour, and then we're gonna come back a little bit. We'll be in Vancouver just for a couple short days. Me and Ben, Kofi's flying out, and like Ben said, they renewed my contract at the Stanford Jazz Workshop, so I'll be teaching there again for a week, which I'm thrilled about. And then I'll be back in New York City for a few short days. And then I'll be in Sweden actually doing some playing there and visiting my best friend she was also an MSM student. She just moved back to Sweden. So I'll be there kind of just acquainting myself with Scandinavia.
What city are you going to be in?
Stockholm.
Nice, yeah. Dear old Stockholm, you might say.
Precisely the one. I might come back with a Viking breastplate.
True that.
Is there anything else that you want to shout out or mention before we end here? For me, it was just that I went about 50-50 on the friendship band trivia on your stories, and that was about in line with my expectations. So I'm feeling pretty decent about going about 50% on that quiz.
I wanted to say that Julia Keefe did exceptionally well on the friendship trivia. She was like nailing. That was the maid of honor at her wedding. In terms of shout outs, like I wanted to give a huge one to, just all of the people I've stayed with on tour. Ni Leo and her daughter, Millie McFall. Thank you both so much for your hospitality and for housing me when I was in Seattle. They had a gorgeous home with 4 Steinways, 3 grands, and like the most beautiful Steinway upright. I was very spoiled. I actually wrote a lot of the music we just recorded. Like I procrastinated so hard. I wrote it while I was in Seattle right before we got here. I was like writing it right before we had to play it at the gig. Oh my God. And I'd also like to give a huge shout out to my mom, obviously, for housing us now. And she's just been like spoiling us with food. She bought our day passes for us to like get our butts here today. And just, another huge shout out to Aaron Klassen, our engineer at Monarch.
The goat.
Yeah. I mean, you said everyone wants to work with Dave Sekula, but like, do check out Aaron Klassen. He was so knowledgeable. I mean, I thought he'd been doing this for ages. Like, I was like, I'm so glad we didn't get like a 20-something. No offense to 20-something. I'm a 20-something. I'm like, I'm so glad we didn't get some like 20-something who's just fresh out of school who doesn't, have that experience. Because he told us he was 41. He definitely didn't look it. He felt much younger. And he, just felt like he'd been doing this for ages. He really helped us get the sound we wanted. Yesterday, we were tracking right up until the very end. He was so patient and awesome with me with like punch-ins and all this stuff, and just wonderful human being. Shout out to Aaron Klassen. And yeah, do check him out next time you're recording at Monarch.
This has been so much fun. This was like a power hour of a lot of stories. That was so much fun and learning about you. I'm so looking forward to hearing you play some music. Thanks to all three of you for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Will.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you enjoyed it, become a member for free today at rhythmchanges.ca. Get the free weekly email every Tuesday morning, including the week's upcoming events from the gig list. Rhythm Changes is a Chernoff music production. This episode was hosted and produced by me, recorded at the Vancouver Public Library Central Branch, edited and mixed by Justin Gorey, and I will catch you in a future edition of this show. Thanks.